Good fences make good neighbors. Boundaries, good fences in other words, are essential to life. I recently saw a documentary that speculated about the origins of life. Crucial to the beginning of life was the formation of a chain of molecules, lipids, I believe, that could create a boundary, an interior space. Otherwise, the potential chemical constituents of living metabolism would just diffuse into the environment. Oneness is one of the great principles underlying everything, but it is a pole of a dynamic paradox. See my philosophy, dynamic paradoxicalism. The other side of that paradox is eachness, though for whatever reason, eachness is not as popular with some Buddhists and New Age folk as oneness and emptiness, which are thought to trump everything else. My bias is toward individuality and content over oneness and emptiness. And this is why I am a content provider rather than an emptiness provider, like so many Eastern guru types who manage to find time to come out of oneness and emptiness to sexually abuse disciples, a really well-known syndrome with Eastern gurus, and teach via, especially ones that come west, and teach via crazy wisdom paths like Tibetan Rinpoche Choyam Trungpa. Um, and so the crazy wisdom path is a giant rationalization that makes people think that the guru knows what they're doing when they're just being an abusive asshole. See a spiraling eye-encrusted overview of the art of Alex Gray. I put the link in the card, something I wrote with Alex Gray's participation for more on the psychology of abusive gurus. I was not able to get Alex himself, however, to really understand the point because he came back with like a very weak comeback of, well, they say that like, if if you think the guru is a dog, then like, then the guru will be a dog or something, as if they're just like perfect, polished cosmic mirrors. No, Adi Da was a rapist, not because I thought see him as a rapist, but because he actually raped underage girls, and so therefore it is not reducible to the projection of others. We don't give that privilege to anyone else. We should not give it to gurus. Okay. And you can see my philosophy, dynamic paradoxicalism, for more on why oneness is not superior to eachness, and see also lessons for an entity incarnating as a mammal. Um, and see the Alex Gray thing for why Eastern gurus, with their emphasis on vertical spiritual transcendence, um, classically lack horizontal psychological integration, especially shadow integration, freeing their shadow to act as an autonomous complex while they think of themselves, because they still have an ego contrary to their own beliefs, that will then act out as an autonomous complex, um, causing harm to themselves and others. So there is a flaw in going Eastern, though some people have a great experience with it. But this is a very classic syndrome. In fact, I found some other Jungian who came to the same conclusions, and apparently was a requirement for Naropa students, a school that Choyam Trungpa founded here in Boulder, to read that essay to understand that situation, because Choyam Trungpa and his chosen disciple caused physical harm, even death, to some of the disciples. But we live in an era where people love to confess their deepest secrets on national television and Twitter, now called X, and Twitter away their inner content for anyone who will pay attention. Many people lose their chance at individuation, at individual evolution, because they lack strong enough boundaries to allow themselves to become distinguished from the collective. One of the extreme examples of poor boundaries is sexual promiscuity, a dangerously naive practice, in my view, that's often red flagged in nightmares that people will have me interpret as an extreme danger to the individual. And I document some of those nightmares in Born Under a Blood Red Moon, Metamorphosis of the Feminine, and the Dreams of Young Women. In waking life, the dreamer may feel that casual sex is a healthy thing, and even that they are somehow being daring and avant-garde by letting go of inhibitions and having sex with strangers, even though their actions are in perfect conformity to the reigning culture of promiscuity. And again, I have no religious or moral um, aspect that's influencing that anti-promiscuity thing. It's from empirical experience, from people's dreams, and due to a desire to help the well-being of the individual. But there is no dumber oxymoron than casual sex. It is not casual on the microbiological plane, right? It can start a life, something called pregnancy. It can end a life through a fatal STD. At the moment, AIDS is not a fatal STD anymore, but I lived through an era in New York where it certainly was, and very quickly, and I witnessed that. So just as it's not casual on that microbiological plane, as above, so below, it's not casual on the bioenergetic and spiritual planes either, nor on the psychological ones and social ones. And so you could also see the card that's linked here called In on the Joke for more on why I don't think there's such a thing as casual sex. Jungian analyst Edward Edinger wrote, have a kind of family connection to him. One of those, the great old guard of Jungians that are all gone, unfortunately. Allowing unknown persons into their homes and into their bodies and into their psyches with no sense of individual boundary. This is an exceedingly dangerous thing to do on the physical level alone, inviting robbery and even murder. Psychologically, it is just as dangerous. Yet these individuals feel so profoundly empty within themselves that there arises a compulsion to be filled with some kind of intimate contact. Compulsions, however, do not work. They are unconscious behaviors and merely repeat themselves. Sexual promiscuity is the sort of behavior that reveals a grave defect in the boundaries of individual identity. These boundaries are lacking, or they are porous, and the psychological doors are wide open. Promiscuity is part of a general sickness in which we do not, and I think it was the end of the Edinger quote. So now this is me again. Promiscuity is part of a general sickness in which we do not recognize the value of our individuality, and desire causes us to become submerged in collective values and identity. Our life force spills out into the environment and becomes indistinguishable from the collective energy. Now, this does not mean that I wish to be the school crossing guard of anybody's sexuality and what consenting adults want to do together. It's trust me, it's not coming from that. It's that, and I also realize that sexuality, like human beings, is infinitely varied. And there could be weird exceptions. Maybe there's somebody out there who has part of their hero's journey needs to have a series of anonymous experiences in the bus station bathroom because that's part of the descent into darkness and will ultimately be a self-initiation. Anything like that could be true. But as a general principle, for the person with a commitment of consciousness, there should be a tremendous burden on sexual promiscuity. And also, I think it's the reason why so many modern relationships tend to fail so quickly. They become physically intimate way too soon in the development of the relationship. You've probably heard my rule of thumb, if you're a follower of this oracle, that until you know the shadow of someone, you don't know the person, because everyone has one. Therefore, it's probably time to hold off on intimacy and commitment until you do know the shadow and know you can deal with it. But because modern relationships tend to become sexualized so soon, it makes them inherently unstable. You've gone to an ultimate state of intimacy that has not yet been earned. But once again, some relationships start out as one-night stands and then become awesome. So, I'm not saying this is always true or condemns your relationship. There are exceptions to everything, case-specific point of view always, but should be a high burden of proof before going against something that is generally true. In Mysterium Coniunctiones, if I'm pronouncing that right, Jung wrote, You too are infected with this collective sickness. Therefore, bethink you for once, and consider what is behind all this desirousness. The more you cling to that which all the world desires, the more you are every man who has not yet discovered himself and stumbles through the world like a blind man leading the blind with somnambulistic certainty into the ditch. Conspiracy theorists and QAnon, where we go one, we go all, the essential line of software code to create a herd. Um, um, this is, Jung quote, is super relevant. So let me repeat that. The more you are every man who has not yet discovered himself and stumbles through the world like a blind man leading the blind with somnambulistic certainty into the ditch. Every man is a multitude. Cleanse yourself of interest of that collective sulfur which clings to all like a leprosy. This means burning in your own fire and not being like a comet or flashing beacon showing others the right way but not knowing it yourself. I love the undiplomatic severity of Jung, I have to say. Strong boundaries are what you need so that you can glow and become luminous with your own fire rather than consumed and burnt out by the general conflagration. That was Jung. Maybe that's me continuing there, I guess. Consider this an auspicious time to repair and build the good fences in your life. Once again, good fences make good neighbors.